Hey guys, it's Warners and I'm back with yet another build video for you today. Today though, I'm going to be doing something a bit different. This is going to be the beginning of a new series inspired by Treant Monk series called Practical Builds. This will be a bit different than Treant Monk's version, and I'm actually going to be collaborating with another fellow YouTuber, and that is Bruce from DSR. So basically, I'm going to be doing a full class build, and I'm going to be considering magic items using the standard player's handbook recommendations of magic items per tier of play, and I'm also going to try to focus a little bit more on roleplay and a little bit less on damage per round. These builds are still going to be doing a lot of damage though. Today, we're specifically going to be going over the Assassin Rogue. I'm going to go from levels 1 to 20, no multi-classing. The magic items I will be using will be only from the Dungeon Master's Guide. No consumables, no scrolls, and no enspelled items. How is DSR going to be involved? Well, after you watch this video where I break down the level 1 to 20 build, DSR is going to be analyzing the damage per round and going to be doing all the fun math things over on his channel. So make sure to check out his video after you're done with this video. Also, if you haven't checked out DSR's channel, Bruce makes amazing content. He is so good at being consistent. He posts at least one video a day, sometimes up to 3 different videos, and they're all top quality content. He does very in-depth analysis of official content as well as partnered content, including my own. He's actually reviewed 2 of my subclasses so far, and with that being said, if you didn't know, every month on my Patreon, I come out with 2024 rules compatible subclasses, and this month I came out with the Passion Domain. This cleric shoots arrows that can charm enemies and make them charmed by your ally, as well as shoot arrows that make them not want to hit any of your friends very well, and they only want to hit you, but you're real far away with your bow. Not only that, but they gain access to a bunch of enchantment spells, as well as the fly spell, and just a bunch of great spells that clerics normally don't get access to. If you've ever wanted to play Cupid in D&D as a cleric, then this is a subclass for you. With that all being said though, let's go ahead and get into the build. Alright guys, so I'm going to go over level 1, then I'm going to go over all the backgrounds and species options and ability scores. Then I'll go over the gear for tier 1, and then as we go through the future tiers, I will go through the gear first and then go through the levels. So starting off with this Assassin Rogue, for traits, I decided to pick Stealth, Perception, Acrobatics, and Deception. As an assassin type character, I feel like these skills are probably the most important and will serve you very well. As far as expertise, I'm going to go with Stealth and Perception because those are even more important than Acrobatics and Deception for a assassin rogue. And then level 1 we get Sneak Attack. You guys know how Sneak Attack works, I assume, but a reminder, it just requires the weapon to be finesse or range. That'll become important later on. And then we also get Thieves' Cant, and the 2024 Thieves' Cant also gives you one other language, and this is one of the few ways to gain access to the more exotic languages in 2024 rules. I'm actually gonna just be going with Elvish though. Doesn't matter a whole lot to the build, but kind of plays into the character and an eventual item we get later on, so yes. Then for weapon masteries, we're actually gonna be going with Longbow and Shortbow. If you didn't know, rogues actually do not gain proficiency in longbows because they specifically gain proficiency in simple weapons and martial weapons with the light property. And the longbow is a martial weapon without the light property. It actually has the heavy property. And we're not going to be multi-classing, but we are going to be able to gain access to longbow proficiency pretty soon in the build. So just keep that in mind. Here at level 1, we're going to be using the shortbow and Vex. And for the background, we're going to be going with Wayfarer. You grew up on the streets surrounded by similarly ill-fated cast-offs, a few of them friends and a few of them rivals. You slept where you could and did odd jobs for food. At times, when the hunger became unbearable, you resorted to theft. Still, you never lost your pride and never abandoned hope. fate is not yet finished with you. So for this character, I imagine not only did they grow up as an outcast in the city, whatever city or town they lived in was very close to a heavily wooded area. And because of that, when stealing was a little too risky, they would resort to hunting for food. So they have the insight skill, because it's hard to trust people in this sort of way being brought up. And then they also have the survival skill for my choice that I picked here. And then when you're hunting in the woods, you're gonna need some sort of way to have your short bow, your long bow, or arrows. And so you acquired proficiency in woodcarver's tools, so you can make your own bow, you can repair your own bow, you can make your own arrows, and you got that all situated for you. And even though you've had a rough life, you did gain the lucky feat, because you've had it rough, but you still pulled through in the end. And for ability scores, I picked +2 in dexterity and +1 in wisdom. And then for species, we're actually going to be going with the Mordenkainen's Monsters of the Multiverse's Goblin. And there is an ability that is a bit redundant on here, and that is Nimble Escape. You take the disengage or hide action as bonus actions, and as us being a rogue, we're going to be able to do that plus the dash action when we reach level 2. So a little bit of redundancy, but that's okay. We get it at first level. If you end up playing more than one session at first level, then this will be a little handy. You get it slightly earlier. We also are small size, which is a bit different in 2024 rules. We now can use heavy weapons, but our strength or dexterity needs to be at a certain level to be able to wield heavy weapons. And since we're going to be wielding a longbow, luckily we do have a high dex, so it'll be all right. Our walking speed is 30 feet. We have dark vision out to 60 feet. We have Fey ancestry, so we have advantage on saving throws to avoid or end the charm condition. But what we're going for here is Fury of the Small. As an assassin, we really wanted to focus this character on doing as much damage as possible, especially in the first round of combat. So with Fury of the Small, when we damage a creature that is larger than us by one size at least, by an attack or spell, it's going to be an attack for us though, of course, we deal extra damage, and the extra damage equals our proficiency bonus, and we can do this proficiency bonus times per long rest. So that is a nice steady little damage boost for our little goblin character. And for our ability scores, we actually are going 13 into strength. It'll make sense here in a bit. I already added the feat on this character sheet, so we have a +1 in strength, but just know this won't actually happen until level 4. Then we got a 15 dexterity with that +2, making it a 17, 14 constitution, 8 intelligence, 12 wisdom with the +1, making it a 13, and we have 10 charisma. The wisdom is mostly because that's just an option available in the Wayfarer background, and it's pretty thematic to be pretty wise, being someone who grew up the way they did. And it's good for saving throws, and we definitely don't want our charisma to be completely awful, so making it at an even 10 is pretty nice. For equipment, we're going to go with the basic rogue starting equipment. Luckily, with the basic rogue starting equipment, we do get a short bow and 20 arrows, so that's very nice. We also get leather armor and a short sword, and we get the quintessential thieves tools, which is amazing to have on a rogue starting out. For the Wayfarer starting equipment, we're going to skip this and we're going to go straight for the 50 gold. And with that 50 gold, we could buy a longbow, which is worth 50 gold specifically, which is exactly worth 50 gold. Or with our woodcarver's tools, we could make a longbow ourselves. So just keep that in mind, depending on what your DM would like to allow. And based on what the PHB says for recommended amount of magic items, for tier 1, they recommend 1 common magic item, which I would imagine your DM will probably give you more than that by level 4, but we're going with what the PHB says for this video. And I went ahead and went with the Horn of Silent Alarm. If you're unfamiliar with this item, basically what it does is you can blow a horn about 4 times a day, and when you do, it alerts a person within 600 feet of your choice, and they can hear the horn, but no one else can. You don't even have to be able to see them, so that's good to keep in mind. I just think as an assassin rogue, you're going to be wanting to find yourself a little nook to be able to shoot arrows from, and having a way to alert your party of when you're either in trouble or when you are like, hey, let's attack now. This is a way that you can signal to your party when you're far away from them. So that is nice to have. have. And let's go ahead and go to level 2. So we get cunning action. So we now get the bonus action dash, disengage, and hide. And that's all we get at level 2. But we also get our rogue subclass. And as we've said, we're getting the assassins. Practice the grim art of death. And assassins training focuses on using stealth, poison, and disguise to eliminate foes with deadly efficiency. I imagine this character as they grew in their skills of hunting prey. Potentially someone noticed their skills with the bow, and they then somehow got indoctrinated into the assassin lifestyle and started making more money and potentially adventuring. Feels pretty natural to me. Before we get into the subclass features though, also at level 3 for base class, you gain steady aim. This makes it so if you haven't moved yet on your turn, you can, as a bonus action, give yourself advantage on an attack, but then you can no longer move for the rest of the turn. And we'll actually be using this a lot for this build, especially early on. We do have the lucky feat as a backup to give us advantage, but if we find ourselves a safe place away from danger, there won't be much reason for us to move anyway. So this will be a nice, easy way to gain advantage. And then for assassin at level 3, we get assassinate. You have advantage on initiative rolls, and you gain surprising strikes. During the first round of each combat, you have advantage on attack rolls against any creature that hasn't taken a turn. If your sneak attack hits any target during that round, the target takes extra damage of the weapon's type equal to your rogue level. So here at level 3, you get to add +3 damage, and your proficiency bonus is +2. So with Fury of the Small, you add another +2. First round, you get an extra +5 damage, which at level 3, pretty nice. You also gain assassin's tools. You gain a disguise kit and a poisoner's kit, and you have proficiency with them, so that is nice. And that'll come into play later in the build. Assassins, especially at higher levels, love to do poison things, and we're going to lean into that a bit, so that'll be nice. And then actually here at level 4, we're going to take a feat that won't be doing anything for us until we gain an item, but I feel like it's worth it, and I think it will up our damage enough that it will feel real nice to have later on. So we're actually taking Great Weapon Master, and in the 2024 rules, it's a bit different. It first of all requires a 13 strength, so that's why we have 13 in strength. Also, it increases our strength score by 1, and then basically every time we hit a creature with a weapon that has the heavy property, which includes the longbow, it doesn't have to be a martial weapon unlike it did in 2014 rules, and specifically this is hitting a creature with the attack action, then we can deal extra damage equal to our proficiency bonus, and we can just do this every single round. So basically with Fury the Small and this together, eventually when we get access to longbow proficiency, we'll be able to add our proficiency bonus twice. So that's pretty sweet. And that is tier 1. To give you a little picture of what we're at here at the end of tier 1, we have 31 hit points. Our armor class is 14. Our dex is +3 on +2. For a 4th level character, I feel like we're doing decently. We're shooting with the short bow still, with the Vex mastery, which gives us advantage fairly often. It also plays really well with the assassinate feature because we automatically get advantage for the first round. And if we hit, which we're most likely going to be able to hit, we can just kind of chain the advantage with Vex. So that is very nice synergy. All right, and now we're at tier 2, and the PHB recommends to give a tier 2 character 1 uncommon magic item. So we're actually going to be going with the Bracers of Archery. The Bracers of Archery give us a couple things. First of all, while we wear these bracers, we have proficiency with the longbow and the short bow. We already have proficiency in the short bow, but we also gain a +2 to damage rolls made with such weapons. So yeah, now we can use the longbow. We can use Great Weapon Master with that longbow to gain our proficiency bonus in damage, and then we also get an additional +2 damage with this uncommon magic item. So nice pickup here at hopefully level 5. And at level 5 here for Rogue, we actually gain Cunning Strike. Basically, whenever you sneak attack, you can reduce the damage of your sneak attack by a certain number of d6s depending on the ability. All 3 of the abilities you gain here at 5th level are reducing the damage by 1d6, but I would say a lot of these are pretty worth it, especially if you're fighting things that are not immune to poison, which the majority of the monster manual is not immune to poison. As a optimizer myself, it becomes easy to dismiss poison damage completely and the poison condition because it is the most resisted damage type and condition, but it still comes up a lot, and that's easy to forget. So yes, with the poison Cunning Strike, you force the target of your sneak attack to make a con save, and when they fail, fail, they have the poison condition for 1 minute. At the end of each of their turns, they can repeat the save, ending the effect on itself on a success. And you have to have a poisoner's kit with you, but you're gonna have a poisoner's kit with you, so yes. And then you also get trip. Larger, smaller creatures make a dex save, and if they fail, they're knocked prone. And then you get withdraw, which basically is a way to disengage and move half your movement speed, but it doesn't cost you your bonus action. So that is nice. It won't be as useful for this character since we're going to be mostly range. We probably won't be in front of people very often. We also get uncanny dodge, nice defensive option here at level 5. And then we also get expertise. I went ahead and went with insight and deception. I feel like as an assassin, you want to be able to lie to people well, but you also want to be able to see through other people's lies. I think those are all very important skills to have as a person that's trying to kill people that don't want to be killed, you know? And then level 7, you gain evasion, which is yet another great defensive option that the rogue has access to. And we also, here at level 7 for the 2024 rogue, we get reliable talent, which is amazing. Any skills or tools we are proficient in, when we roll a d20 and it's below 9 or lower on the dice, it automatically becomes a 10. So all those skills I talked about so far, we're going to be able to never roll below a 10. So that is pretty amazing for this build. And then at level 8, we get our ability score improvement, number 2. I'm actually going to be taking a lot of feats that only give us a +1. And so our dexterity is actually going to be delayed a bit, but don't worry, rogues get an extra feat at level 10. So we're going to be at 20 dex by level 12. And I feel like that is worth it for the benefits we're going to be getting. So here at level 8, we're actually going to be going for Fey Trickster. This is from the Heroes of Faerun book that came out in November. So we're going to get our dex to 18. When we disengage, difficult terrain will not cost us extra movement for the rest of that turn. That's a nice little benefit. Kind of situational though. But then the main reason we got this is for Flustering Strike. When we hit a creature with an attack roll, we can attempt to fluster the target. The target must succeed on a wisdom saving throw based on our dexterity, or have a disadvantage on saving throws until the end of your next turn. Amazing debuff. When it hits, it's going to make it so all your cunning strike abilities are made at disadvantage. It's going to make it so any of your friends' abilities are going to be made at disadvantage. And if you use it again your second turn, then it's going to make the saving throw of Flustering Strike also at disadvantage. So it kind of stacks on itself, but it is only available proficiency bonus times per long rest. So we can't use this unlimited amounts of time, but it will be very impactful when we do use it. So that is a great pickup here at level 8. Then here at level 9, we get our next Assassin Rogue subclass feature. And the first feature we get here is Masterful Mimicry. You can unerringly mimic another person's speech, handwriting, or both if you have spent at least 1 hour studying them. This feature is very 2014 coded, but I like it. It's very good, very situational, but when you use it, especially in a heavy roleplay type game, I feel like you'll really enjoy this feature. But the best part of this level 9 is we get roving aim. Your speed isn't reduced to 0 by using steady aim. So as long as you haven't moved yet on your turn, you can bonus action steady aim, give yourself advantage on your attack roll, giving you an automatic sneak attack, and you can still move around as much as you would like. So great pickup here. And then at level 10, we get another feat, and we're actually going to be going with Sharpshooter. This will increase our dexterity to 19, so not quite capped out at 20 yet, but that's okay. We get to ignore half cover and 3/4 cover on our ranged attack rolls. If we're shooting our longbow in melee range, we don't have disadvantage on the roll anymore. And if we're shooting our longbow with its long range being 600 feet, it no longer is at disadvantage. So yeah, we'll be able to shoot from real far away, which is nice. So here at the end of tier 2, I forgot to mention, I went ahead and added studded leather armor because you'll probably be able to find it or buy it by now. We're looking at a 16 AC. Our dexterity is a +4. Our HP is at 73. When we're shooting with that longbow, it's a +8 to hit, 1d8 +6 because of the Bracers of Archery. And remember, at this point, we got Fey Trickster, we got Cunning Strike, so we could poison or prone someone, potentially at disadvantage if they fail their Flustering Strike saving throw. We can add Great Weapon Master proficiency bonus for +4 damage, and Fury the Small for +4 more damage. First round of combat, we get to add our rogue level in damage. So yeah, we're packing on the damage here at level 10 at the end of tier 2. And that being said, let's go ahead and go to tier 3. All right, so now in tier 3, let's go over the magic items. So I went ahead and went with the Pole of Collapsing for one of my common items. It's basically a pole that can go out to 10 feet, but you can also collapse it to 1 foot. This could help you get up to high places, and I feel like it could just come up and be useful in various different ways. And then I went with the Mystery Key. The Mystery Key basically gives you a 5% chance to unlock any lock, and once it successfully unlocks a lock, it is consumed. It actually disappears, it says in the description. So let's say as you're lockpicking locks as a rogue, as a lot of rogues usually do, you are really having trouble with a lock, you might as well see if your 5% chance to succeed happens, you know? Just a little fun item to have. I really like that they have this item. And then at tier 3, the PHB recommends 2 more uncommon magic items as well as a rare item. So we went ahead and for our first uncommon item, we went with the Winged Boots. This basically gives you around 4 hours of a fly speed of 30 feet every day, and 4 charges, and they recharge by 1d4 daily at dawn. So, you know, it's not always going to be 4 hours, but around 2 to 4 hours every day. Also, if you happen to fall or the flying expires, you descend at a rate of 30 feet per round until you land, so you don't have to worry too much about getting knocked out of the sky. I guess that only applies when the flying expires. You could still be knocked prone and fall, even if you have these boots on. So good to keep that in mind. But yeah, flight is kind of self-explanatory. I feel like I don't need to explain why flying is good. So nice pickup here. And then I went with the Goggles of Night. If you are more familiar with the 2014 Goggles of Night, then this might seem odd to you because I already have dark vision out to 60 feet. But what the 2024 Goggles of Night do is even if you have dark vision, it enhances your dark vision by 60 more feet. So our dark vision is going to be at 120 feet, which as a ranged character that can shoot pretty far already, it'll be nice to have these goggles for when we're in complete darkness, but we still want to shoot our arrows at a long distance. And then we finally got a weapon upgrade. We now have the longbow +2, and just like most of these items, pretty self-explanatory why the longbow is good. Don't need to go too much into detail. We get +2 to our damage and +2 to our to hit. So yeah, pretty nice. Beginning this tier at level 11, we now get improved cunning strike, and this allows us to do 2 cunning strike options with 1 sneak attack. So for example, we could prone and poison a creature at the cost of 2d6 to our sneak attack dice, which could be useful, but also at level 14, we'll be getting new cunning strike options. So it'll be a little more useful when we have more options, in my opinion, but nice pickup here. Then at level 12, we finally cap out our dex to 20 with the Poisoner feat. And like I talked about before, poison is something that us optimizers tend to be a little weary of, but pretty quickly at level 13, the Assassin Rogue gets an ability that relies on poison. So I decided to sort of double down on it. When we're fighting creatures that are not immune to poison, this feature will be really great combined with everything else. So like I said, we increase our dexterity to 20, and then we ignore resistance to poison damage, which isn't going to come up much. There's a very small amount of creatures that are resistant to poison. Most creatures that have some sort of defenses against poison are immune. But then we also get brew poison. Essentially, for an hour of work and 50 gold pieces, so you could do this before a long rest, even if your party doesn't allow for a lot of downtime. You can create poison doses equal to your proficiency bonus. These also don't go away after a long rest, so you could make a bunch of these if you have the time and the gold. And basically, as a bonus action, you can apply the poison to your weapon or piece of ammunition, and once applied, it retains the poison for a minute or until you deal damage with the poison item. And basically, when you hit with that item, you can make a creature make a Constitution saving throw, and if they fail, they take 2d8 poison damage and have the poison condition till the end of your next turn. And we're going to be using Fey Trickster relatively often, at least 5 times a day. Our proficiency bonus times per day. So if they fail the Flustering Strike saving throw, then they're going to be making this saving throw a disadvantage, along with anything else you want to make them make saving throws for, such as Cunning Strike options. So yes, very nice. And then right at level 13, one level afterwards, you get Envenom Weapon. When you use the poison option of your Cunning Strike, the target also takes 2d6 poison damage whenever it fails the saving throw. This includes on subsequent turns when they are making the saving throw to try to end the poisoning condition. They'll take this 2d6 poison damage, and this ignores resistance to poison damage, which, like I said before, isn't that big of a deal. But if you have Flustering Strike applied, then they're way more likely to take the 2d8 poison damage from the Poisoner feat, along with 2d6 poison damage from Envenom Weapons. So yeah, that's stacking up the damage pretty quickly, depending on if the creature is immune or not. Then at level 14, we get Devious Strikes. We get 3 new options. We get Daze, which they make a con save at the cost of 2d6, and if they fail, they can only move, take an action, or use a bonus action. Or for a very expensive cost of 66 sneak attack dice, they make a con save, or they're unconscious for a minute, or until they take any damage. The unconscious target also repeats the save at the end of each of its turns. If you guys don't know, unconscious also gives creatures essentially the effect that paralysis does, where if you hit them, it's an automatic crit when you're in melee range. So you could potentially knock someone out, and then if they stay knocked out until your next turn, you could then get an automatic crit, and critting on a rogue is very good, especially with all the other little added things we have on this character. So yes. And then the obscure option, you can have them make a dex save for 3d6 dice, and if they fail, they are blinded until the end of their next turn. So yeah. And at level 15, we get Slippery Mind. You have proficiency in wisdom and charisma saving throw. At level 15, you often run into a lot of spellcasters. You're making a lot of saving throws, and so with our saving throws we're already proficient in, adding these two is a great boon to this character. Level 16, we have already capped out our dexterity, and this class doesn't really need much else to sustain it. So I decided to go with the Speedy feat, and this will increase our con by 1, and our speed increases by 10 feet. More speed on almost any character is great to have. And then when we take the dash action on our turn, difficult terrain doesn't cost extra movement for the rest of that turn. So now with disengage or dash, which we can do both very easily as a rogue, we ignore difficult terrain when you combined speed with Fey Trickster. So that's kind of cool. And then opportunity attacks have disadvantage against us. So yeah, that is the end of tier 3, and we're looking pretty solid here at level 16. We have an armor class of 17. Dexterity is finally capped out at +5. Our proficiency bonus is +5. So when we combine Great Weapon Master with our Fury of the Small, that's a +10 damage. Our con is at a 15, and we're going to be able to raise it to a 16 before we get to level 20. So we're going to up our HP a bit. But here at level 16, we have 115 hit points, which isn't too bad for a ranged character. And then we are shooting with that longbow for a +12 to hit. We're doing 1d8 +9 damage, plus all the other stuff we got going on. Sneak attack dice is at 8d6. Things are looking good here at level 16. Let's go ahead and go to the final tier 4 though. As always, we start with the items. So we gain 2 new rare items and 1 very rare item. So I decided to go for the +1 studded leather armor. This puts our armor class up to an 18, which in tier 4 is not bad for a ranged character. We also gained Cape of the Montebank, which allows us once per day to cast Dimension Door. And for a character that doesn't have any spell casting, being able to Dimension Door once a day is a nice little boon for us. And then we do already have the longbow +2, but I decided to go for the Oathbow for our very rare item. When you notch an arrow on this bow, it whispers in Elvish, "Swift death to my enemies." When you use this weapon to make a ranged attack, you can utter or sign the following command word: "Swift death to you who have wronged me." The target of your attack becomes your sworn enemy until it dies, or until 7 days later. You can have only one such sworn enemy at a time. When your sworn enemy dies, you can choose a new one after the next dawn. When you make a ranged attack roll with this weapon against your sworn enemy, you have advantage on the roll. In addition, your target gains no benefit from half cover or 3/4 cover, and you suffer no disadvantage due to long range. If the attack hits, your sworn enemy takes an extra 3d6 piercing damage. While your sworn enemy lives, you have disadvantage on attack rolls with all other weapons. So yes, this Oathbow can potentially add a ton of extra damage. It also gives us automatic advantage, but I think it's still very good to have a backup bow, because there are encounters you're going to have where you don't want to kill the target, and so it's good to still have the +2 longbow for those situations. Also, potentially you're fighting a creature that has a very high AC. Maybe that +2 to hit really is worth it. And then maybe you are just not confident you're going to be able to take down the enemy, and the enemy might run away, and then until 7 days pass or until you kill the creature, you wouldn't be able to use any other bow, and you wouldn't be able to get a new sworn enemy, so that's a little unfortunate. Pretty sweet items though, and it really makes this build come together. Go ahead and go over the levels though. So at level 17, we get this great ability for the Assassin Rogue, Death Strike. When you hit with your sneak attack on the first round of a combat, the target must succeed on a Constitution saving throw, which they could be making a disadvantage because of Flustering Strike. The DC is your Dex mod DC, or the attack's damage is doubled against the target. And keep this in mind, it says your attack's damage is doubled. That means it's not just the sneak attack, it's also anything else you add, and it's not just dice, it's any damage. And we have Fury of the Small, we have Great Weapon Master, we have potentially the poison damage from Poisoner, we have the poison damage from our Cunning Strike. We have a lot of extra damage we're throwing into this, and if they fail this con save, it's doubled. And this is on the first round of any combat, so you could use this multiple times a day, especially if you have multiple combats a day. So that is pretty nice. Oh, I also forgot to mention, this is going to be doubling your Assassinate extra damage as well, which is +17 right now. So yeah, doubling that. Combined with everything else, your first rounds of combat are going to be very explosive. Then level 18, we get Elusive. You're so evasive that attackers rarely gain the upper hand against you. No attack roll can have advantage against you unless you have the incapacitated condition. So there we go. Great defensive option. You're never gonna have to worry about someone hitting you at advantage, basically. And then the epic boon feat, we already committed ourselves to poison damage at level 12, so let's go all the way into it with the boon of poison mastery. We went ahead and upped our constitution to 16 with this feat, so we are rocking a pretty solid con mod. We now have immunity to poison damage in the poison condition, which is actually very good defensively. Offensively, poison is hit or miss, but defensively, poison is pretty common for monsters to use, and it can be very debilitating depending on the ability. But then we also get Perfect Poisoner once per turn, so that means this happens every single turn, but only once. When you roll dice to determine poison damage a creature takes from your attack, spell, or feature, you can instead use the highest number possible for each die. So all of your poison damage once per turn is automatically the highest it could possibly be, and if you're using Death Strike, it is then doubled. So yeah, pretty insane. This could potentially be 2d8 plus 2d6 if they fail both saves for 28, and then if it's your Death Strike, that's doubled to 56, and that's just the poison damage. So yeah, pretty crazy. I don't want to do too much math because that's a DSR's job. So let's go ahead and go to level 20. We get Stroke of Luck. All rogues get this. This is your class capstone. Once per short or long rest, if you fail a d20 test, you can automatically turn the roll into a 20. So yeah, there you go. Not a lot to say about it. It's just a great capstone. You're level 20. We're rocking 18 AC, con +3, dex +5. We have saving throw proficiency in dexterity, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. We have advantage to avoid or end the charm condition. Walking speed is 40. Proficiency bonus is +6. Our hit points is 163 hit points. Our attack action, if we use our Oathbow on our sworn enemy, we're looking at 1d8 +7 for 11 to hit, plus 3d6 damage, and it automatically has advantage on the attack with the Oathbow. Or we're using the longbow +2 for +13 to hit with 1d8 +9. So yeah, pretty nice setup here at level 20. And yeah, that is the build. So now that I finished the build, it's time for you guys to watch Bruce over at DSR go over the damage breakdown and just kind of break it all down and see how good the Assassinate Rogue can be. Thank you guys so much for watching. I would like to thank my Patreon subscribers that subscribe every month and they get early access to my videos as well as my monthly PDF subclasses at the Vanguard tier. Thank you Alex S, Brandon M, Brian, Ormac F, DSR himself, Don Dusk, Stony H, Matt T, and at my comrade tier, the Grizzly Clock. Thank you so much. I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, so consider subscribing down below and go ahead and go over to DSR's channel. Check out the video right here. Check it out. Go watch it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace out.